Chair Simpson, Ranking Member Pingree, members of the subcommittee, some of them here. Lem, thank you for this opportunity today. Getting the opportunity to talk to you about fiscal year 2027 appropriations for tribal historic preservation officers. My name is Ira Matt. I'm a member of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribes and the Executive Director for the National Association of Tribal Historic Preservation Officers, or NAHPO. NAHPO, we are the only nationwide nonprofit dedicated specifically to supporting tribal preservation programs and the tribal nations they serve. And I'm here today to urge the committee to provide $34 million in 2027 for the Tribal Historic Preservation Fund line item administered by the National Park Service. This request is rooted in a straightforward concern. Tribal Historic Preservation Officers, or THPOs, are being asked to carry a growing workload of federal review, consultation, documentation, and protection responsibilities, but the funding provided to support that work has not kept pace with either the number of THPOs or the complexity of the work itself. From FY23 to FY26, the number of THPO programs grew from 211 to 235. During that same period, the average amount available per THPO declined from roughly 108,000 to 101,000. And although there was an increase in FY26, which was much appreciated, it was the first increase since FY23, and it has not kept pace with the actual need. For tribal nations, this is not simply an administrative funding issue. THPO work is an exercise of tribal self-governance. THPOs help identify, document, and protect burial sites, sacred places, historic properties, indigenous knowledge, and other cultural and historical information that tribal nations rely on to exercise their sovereignty. Their work also extends well beyond federal compliance. They often support repatriation efforts, protect treaty and reserved rights, inform land and water-related matters, and engage federal agencies on undertakings that may affect places of religious and cultural importance both on and off tribal lands. And they're often the first line of government response when agencies or applicants seek to move projects forward. At the $34 million level, the average amount available per THPO would raise to approximately $144,000. NAHPO is recommending this amount because it represents a practical and necessary improvement over current funding levels, and it would help restore a measure of capacity, stability, and fairness to the THPO programs, which like Mr. Ungaro was talking about. Now, I do want to point out that even at that level, these tribal programs would still probably be operating below what is typically required to sustain professional capacity comparable to similarly skilled positions in the federal government, those that are at GS-13 or GS-14 level. And I make that comparison for a reason. When tribal nations assume historic preservation funds under the National Historic Preservation Act, the National Park Service requires the tribe to either employ or have access to individuals who meet the Secretary of Interior's professional qualification standards. Those standards establish degree and experience requirements for archaeologists, historians, architectural historians, and other qualified professionals. So in other words, tribes are expected to secure professional expertise comparable to what the federal government itself recognizes as specialized. Yet tribes are expected to do that with funding that, until recently, averaged close to $100,000 a year for their entire program. That's not only has to support professional capacity, but practical operation of the office as well. And the consequences of that underfunding are predictable. Tribal programs face greater difficulty recruiting and retaining qualified personnel. Federal agencies subsequently rely more on contractors, and project review backlogs grow. Consultation becomes more reactive, less effective, and prone to delay. Now, tribal nations are not asking the committee to stop development. I think you're hearing a lot about how tribes need housing, energy, infrastructure, economic opportunity, more so than most. What tribal nations are asking for is fairness and functional capacity. They should not be expected to meet these expanding federal demands for projects or provide expertise needed to make those processes work without the resources to do so. And providing $34 million for the Tribal Historic Preservation Fund line item is a practical investment in better federal decision-making, stronger tribal-federal relations, and more consistent protections of the places, histories, and knowledge that cannot be restored once lost. I would also note that my submitted written testimony includes additional requests beyond the Historic Preservation Fund NATHPO's urged support for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, much like most of the speakers probably have, the Bureau of Land Management, and other departments and agencies to bolster their cultural resource programs, where experience has shown that federal capacity is limited. The submitted testimony also includes a request related to NAGPRA, which continues to require stronger support if its purposes are to be carried out in a meaningful and timely way. Thank you for your time and consideration.